What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today, we have ex-pro basketball player. He is the CEO of Pro Level Training and the national director for the Nike Sports Camps. Recently, he just dropped his book, Filtering: The Way to Extract Strength from Struggle. Mr. Joel Green, thank you for joining the show, brother.
Mason, thanks so much for having me on, man. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. And I want to dive right into your career as a basketball player. What does basketball mean to you?
Like, it means a whole lot to me, man. It's they say ball is life.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's other things that's priority, still. But, it means it's brought me to so many places. It's taken me so many places. It's opened so many doors. I've seen other countries as a result of it. And, even my son is able to do things because I'm still involved in basketball. It means a whole lot to me. I invested a lot into it, and it gave me a lot back, a great return.
Absolutely. For those who don't know anything about you, I just want to give them a little background, right? So you were at Hargrave Military, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but Hargrave Military, and
Absolutely.
You helped them to a #1 national ranking, and you yourself was a top 30 player in the nation. So when you're on a stage like that, what is kind of the expectation, or are there pressures that you're putting on yourself to perform on that kind of stage?
I didn't really put it on myself. Others may have.
Right.
And I remember even my team, we didn't really put the pressure. We just had so much fun. We were 18, 17, 18 years old. We thought it was cool to be that highly ranked. And
Right.
and so was our football team. USA both ranked #1 in the country. And I think it was one of the first times the school ever had both, sports ranked that high. And so we would challenge each other, in the barracks. We would be in the barracks, we were in golf company. We'll go back and we're talking trash to the football players, like, oh, you're probably gonna lose this weekend.
Yeah.
And they say the same thing to us. But I didn't feel any pressure, man. We already put so much on ourselves to just excel and practice every day, and it was so competitive to where the games were a little bit easier. We had a ball with it. I'll be honest, we had a ball.
Yeah. It's always fun when you have a group of guys like that can push you. I think it's even more important, when you get out of sports too, is, surrounding yourself with those people who push you so much that when you get into those situations, it's like muscle memory at that point.
Exactly. It's a piece of cake.
Yeah, for sure. So you go from high school, you do all these great things and have these accolades in high school to Siena College. And this is where you and I's stories kind of intersect. I've had multiple ACL injuries and sustained injuries, and, playing hoops and stuff like that. And like right before college, and then, you're scared you're going to lose your scholarship and all this stuff. Right. So I know that brought a whole host of hardships for me, especially with it being, the love of my life at that time. So when you sustained that injury, you ended up transferring to a JUCO. I got lots of buddies who had played JUCO ball, transferred in from JUCO when I was in college and stuff. So for those who don't know, give us a little bit of your JUCO experience. Like, what were some of the hardships that you went through?
The hardships, to begin with, was coming from a Division I school and then going into a JUCO. Yeah. That was the hardest adjustment, because you have all the luxuries of, a meal card, and just go and get food as much as you want, pretty much. Convenience stores on campus, and just all these perks. The books are free because they're on scholarship,
right?
And it just had all these different amenities on campus. The dorms were nice. I got to JUCO down in Texas, and it was, backcountry, Paris, Texas. It was the total opposite. It was like, just literally the flip side. It was like Bizarro world. And, everything that I expected just wasn't there. And I handled it because I grew up not having much, so it was cool. But it was an adjustment to make. And it was just really, you had to do a whole lot for yourself. You had to make your own meals pretty much, and find a way to, I swear that we were making things on a radiator. It was like, all right, I'm gonna heat up this this cheese and this bread, and hopefully it kind of turns out like a grilled cheese. It was that level of non-amenities, but it made me just, it made me a little tougher in another regard. And it did make us focus on basketball that much more, though. I'll be honest. Our escape was just getting to the gym and getting up even more shots because we were so bored in the dorms. There was nothing to do.
Right. Yeah. As I hear that story from you, and I think about a lot of what your message is in your book, even now, leaning into struggles and those hardships, not necessarily always having to be a negative. How much did that experience early on in your career? I mean, injury and making that transfer from D1 to JUCO, like how much did that shape you to, what you speak about today?
Well, it shaped me so much because, again, what I didn't mention was obviously when I went into JUCO, following an injury, and JUCO was the only way I can keep playing. They told me I had to literally, if I wanted to play, because I already sat out due to tearing my hamstring freshman year, and they said, okay, well, if you want to transfer to another school and continue to play, you can't transfer to St. Joe's, which is what I was going to do. They were ready to receive me and everything. Yeah. But NCAA rule, you transfer, you have to sit out. I'm like, oh my goodness. So they said I have to do this 4-2-4 transfer, go from a 4-year school into a 2-year school, back to a 4-year, hopefully. And I chose that option. I said, well, I just want to play basketball. Mm-hmm. And so went down to Paris, Texas, and won a national championship. And that was like, okay, I saw even in that moment, like, okay, even despite a hardship of as far as an injury, there's still a way to get on top of this thing. It's still a way to use it as motivation. And that's what I did, man. I said, okay, I had to sit out for a 4 year, which was torture, just to watch my teammates play basketball. Yeah. And I was projected to be, one of the top freshmen in the conference and all this great stuff. And I didn't get any of that. I said, I'm going to work that much harder by the time I'm healthy. And I helped my team down there win. And just to get closer to home so my family can see me play, I transferred to another JUCO because I had to do 2 years just to get back to a 4-year school. And transferred to a school up in Maryland and won another national championship, which was just, after the second one happened, I'm like, this is pretty amazing, to win 2 back-to-back national championships at 2 different schools. It was a blessing, man. And it showed, it was a testament of not just mine, of course, my hard work, but it was a whole team effort. But individually speaking, I know how hard I worked. I was busting my behind, man. I worked my hardest up to that point. As an athlete, I said, I have to get back to Division I. And I was working out with pros that summer going into that school in Maryland, working out with Allen Iverson and working out with different guys from the Sixers and just overseas guys. They took my game all the way up here. I didn't even expect it to happen, but just being around them showed me your company means a whole lot to your progress. And it's just, I've been surrounding myself with great company ever since, man. I've seen what it's done for me. Yeah,
that's incredible. But thinking back now, obviously the rules have changed a lot for college.
Right.
It's like you see guys like transfer portal now. It's nuts.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, NIL stuff too, and getting paid and everything. It's crazy.
Dude, I wish that would have been nice if that can get some retro, some retro.
Right, come on, man.
Oh man, that would have been nice for us, man.
So you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but after you go through this process, you get to play overseas and travel as a pro. What was it like being able to see a different country and be in that environment, and kind of how did that shape you and your perspective of life in general?
Man, it just shaped me so much to, it helped me truly to become who I am today, just from those experiences. It opened my mind, you know what I mean? Not that I was a closed-minded person, but I didn't know what was out there, beyond our country realm. I traveled playing college basketball, traveled by way of AAU around the country. But the moment I had to step out of the country and experience other cultures, other type of people that I've never been around before, it really opened me up just to embrace and to accept, those that are nothing like me. And I loved it. I fully dove in and just really said, wow, okay, we didn't come from the same place at all. We're all human. We loved on each other in the same way. it was an amazing experience, man.
Yeah. I always say it's so awesome to be able to get out and travel when you can. I mean, if you have an opportunity, take it, because it really does what you said. It just opens up, your mind to how big this world really is, and the different cultures. And so often we get so caught in our little lane and think that like we're the only thing that matters. You're like, you're like this, man. You're like this.
Exactly.
Really.
Exactly. I felt the same. I was like, wow, okay, I thought, we had it bad. That's where it helped me out a lot too, because I remember the first place I played, it was my rookie season was in Limerick, Ireland. And I know I grew up in what's considered the hood, the ghetto. There were some areas over there to where there were literally broken buildings on one side, but people lived on the other side of the building that was literally, it just looked like an old broken castle of sorts. But people lived just on that room that was next to it that actually had lights on. I'm like, whoa, people live in that? And it was just, I saw a different level of ghetto over there, ghettos, just the graffiti. It opened me up in so many ways. Like, I need to appreciate where I come from.
Yeah, that's awesome. After you go through this process, right, and you've played ball and it's such a huge piece of your life, I feel like a lot of athletes go through this transition. I know I did personally, where when the game's gone, it's like, whoa, especially if you've played, collegiately or professionally. This is something you've been doing for, almost 20 years, maybe more than 20 years. So it's like such a part of your DNA. And when it gets taken away, it's like, it's a shell shock to a lot of people. So I want to talk a little bit about your transition from basketball to entrepreneurship and kind of some of the hardships that came with that. Like, what did that look like for you?
Well, I mean, you can probably attest to it too, but I went through depression, so it's like, I experienced anxiety for the first time. And I mean it too, you know how it is. We're kind of bred for anxiety athletically, like we're put in practice in these high pressure moments. We have 2-minute drills. We have all these things to where we're taught how to handle anxieties in the moment and pressures. But I never had to experience this level of anxiety as far as this into normal life,
right?
Sedentary life, and just having to sit down and not travel and not move around, which is what I love. And I remember I was feeling this something in my throat. And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm asking around about it. I'm Googling things. I'm like, what is this thing I'm feeling? But, my heart rate's just kind of just, out of sort. And the doctor, he chuckled and laughed at me. He said, man, it's anxiety. He said, that's you're going, because he asked me a series of questions. And he said, man, you're going through a huge transition right now. He said, you're not fully enjoying, having to be here in the States and having to sit still and having to sit down. And I was a temp working out of a call center at Bank of America. That was a part of my transition. I'm like, this was all, I was depressed.
Yeah.
But it was a part of my journey. I knew that I wanted to do my own thing. I knew I wanted to start my own company. And, I got my business license while I was actually playing in Europe.
Wow.
And I said, I knew I would want to step away just a little bit sooner. It was unexpected to everybody, myself included, to be honest, but I had to follow, what I was compelled to do. And I'm glad I did it, and 12 years later, 11 years later, we're still in business.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I can totally attest to that. I feel like I had a similar experience where, you are put in high pressure situations, but you're so prepared for those. Like, that's what you live for, that adrenaline and that feeling. You're like, this is
you
like,
want
it just,
that.
yeah, everything just goes away, right? You get in that flow state. And for me, it was the same thing. Like, not until I got my first real job out of college did I ever feel any type of anxiety. I didn't even know what that was. I was the most carefree person you could think of. It's just crazy. I feel like a lot of people will go through that one way or another. A lot of people deal with anxiety in general, but athletes for sure, I feel like coming out of that situation, it's just a big adjustment. So if you were looking back, to tell maybe someone who's listening to this right now that's in high school or college or about to make this transition or in the middle of it, Like, is there something you would tell to your younger self as you're making that adjustment?
Yeah, I mean, so making that adjustment, I would just tell myself to stay curious, stay curious and creative, right? So just find ways to continue learning. That was the big thing for me. I had to keep learning something new of interest for myself, as opposed to learning about this trade that I really don't feel like doing. I'm just stuck just to make a buck. And, I had to stay curious about, okay, how can I build this business I know I have inside of me that I've been wanting to do? How can I strategically make this thing work? And, however long I have to do it on the side, how can I do it? And that's what, I began doing. And I wrote about it in my new book. And there's a sub chapter to where I talk about how to make your required zone your desired zone, or how to make your desired zone your required zone. And I refer to the required zone as your 9 to 5, but your desired zone, that's where your dreams, your hopes, and your aspirations are. And for me, I was building up my desired zone on the side for years. It's like, okay, while I'm working as a temp for these months, and I'm like, I had to get out of there. Now, all of a sudden, became certified as a personal trainer. And I did that for about 4 years. I'm like, okay, I enjoy it, but this is not what I want to do. So I'm still building up, things on the side the entire time with my camps, my trainings, with my training company. And I got the personal training job. And this is what I've told entrepreneurs a lot of times too. If you're able to get into a profession while you're building up that desired zone of yours, see if you can find some correlation with that profession, with what you're trying to build up. For me, I strategically got into personal training because I wanted to know what the training business was all about. I would talk to the CEO there. This is at Gold's Gym. I would talk to the CEO there often, ask them questions. I probably annoyed him. And, I knew a lot just from the athletic side of things. Right. But I would ask other trainers, like, hey, what do you think? How do you, because all these guys went to school for kinesiology and things like that. Yeah. And I went to school for psychology, which I applied to what I did. But I'm like, these guys, they know this stuff in and out. And so that helped build up my company, just learning from other people where I was required to be every single day. And I said, okay, I got what I needed from here, and I moved on. I said, okay, now I need my summers open, because the camps began to grow with my training company. So I transitioned into education. I said, okay, now let me make sure that can open up this 2-month period. Because I told myself, I wrote out a whole plan. I said, if I open up my summers, I'm going to be able to be out of having to work a 9 to 5, right, at least 5 years. And I did it in 4. I was able to walk away and just fully run my company. And, it was doing all this, it was strategy, but it was humbling at the same time, man. Going from being a pro athlete, praised in different cities, being applauded and just noticed on the street, oh, you're the American, oh, you're Joe, this and that. And being and then being a teacher's assistant, which is what I ended up doing for 4 years. I put a lot of pride aside. I just had to grind and hustle, man. I'm a humble person, but it humbled me even more. It's like, okay, it's not about how you look. It's not about what people think of you. It's literally about, are you going according to the plan that you wrote out for yourself? And are you doing what you enjoy doing that's going to lead you somewhere where you desire to be? And I thank God I stuck with that, man. And I was able to step away April 3rd, 2018 from that job and just do my company full time. And we've taken off ever since.
Yeah, it's a testament to, having a plan. One, when I hear you say that, you had a plan that you were able to execute on, and then knowing that, hey, this is going to take some time, right? It's not going to, happen overnight. You have the patience with it. And the third biggest takeaway I got there was developing skills in the other areas. Like, you knew you wanted to do X, so your side hustle or whatever else you were working on was helping fill that. That's for anyone that's listening to this. I mean, you could make sure whatever job you're working before you get to your desired state is helping fill those skills, because no one can take skills from you.
Right. And here's my advice to you guys as well, is every job, honestly, can contribute to whatever business you're trying to do. Yeah. Business, 90% of business structures are structured the same way. Like on the administrative side, there's a hierarchy in every business. You know, there's if you're able to, there's people that you can delegate objectives to. There's something you can learn from wherever you are. You just got to be intentional about finding it out. You got to ask your current manager some questions. Actually, current, boss some questions. Feel free to annoy them. You know what I mean? Like, I think they'll appreciate more than anything else, seeing that you're becoming a student of theirs. I personally love that. When I have people that works along, with me, ask me questions, I appreciate it. They see something in me enough to ask me a question.
Right.
And so that was me in a nutshell. I'm sure it was like, here he goes again. Like that. I would sit down and do it. Like, so they knew if I sat down in their office, I had
like,
to talk about.
Oh, here we go.
Right? So, and I legit will walk out of there and put notes on my phone. And I still have some of the notes. I transferred them to some other areas and, notebooks I kept since like 2014. But I was a student, man. I stayed curious. And that curiosity just had me learning over and over. I just started reading so much, man. It just didn't stop.
Yeah. Speaking of reading, you recently did a challenge reading 30 books in 30 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a feat.
It was, man. It was a feat for sure. Once I got my rhythm, it was hard to break the stride. Once I got my stride probably about 6 weeks in.
Yeah.
I'll say about 6 weeks in, it was clockwork for me. But I had to get to that point to where it's like, okay, I got it. And I didn't even think about it anymore. It was just my schedule.
Yeah. After
a moment. And it didn't matter how long the book was. I wasn't doing 400-page books or anything. I wasn't doing, the most, a lot of the books were, between 200, 250, 265, something like that. The majority of the books were. But I just got my rhythm and I broke it down to a few people of how I did it. And it required me to do what I was already doing. I would wake up early already. I just segmented my schedule. When I had, 30 minutes of just creative time, I made that my reading time. Because I always have creative time and thinking time within my schedule. And I just converted some of that to reading time. I didn't have to stay up late to do this. A lot of people thought I had to extend my hours. I really didn't. There were certain nights, I did it a couple of times, like, oh man, I didn't get enough in. But I legit just read an hour, 60 to 90 minutes every day throughout the day, not straight. I would work in 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, maybe 30 minutes. And just once I got my 90 minutes, I was happy.
Yeah. And that's coming from a CEO and someone who's busy and got a full plate. I mean, you can, if you want to do it, you can do it, right? There's excuses that we can all make, but the work can be done, even if it's broken up like you did it, right? I mean,
and if I could throw this in there too, I mean, if this is encouraging to anybody, I'm not big on monitoring and micromanaging finances, right? I'm more so a product guy, a service guy, to where I know if I'm providing a top-notch service, the finance is going to be a byproduct of my service. It's going to come. Like if I'm providing something great revenue is going to come. But I still have to review numbers. It's a must. I must do it.
Right.
But I will say, following that challenge that I gave myself, right? And I was reading. I was strategic about it. There was so much I wanted to learn about. I wanted to learn about investing a little bit more in the stock market and different things. I wanted to learn about being a better administrator and leader. I read a whole lot about leadership. Probably, 8 of the books were on leadership and business organization. I would say that our revenue, since the challenge, is going up over 400,000. Because of the stuff that I learned and I applied it. I learned so much from that challenge. I was like, oh shoot. It was crazy. I'm like, why didn't I do this before? As far as, making sure I read with intent, like, okay, read about this topic. That I told I think it was 4 topics. And there was a lot of self-help in there too. It was a ton of self-help just to keep myself encouraged, keep myself focused, spiritually minded, things like that. it helped everything grow. I grew and my company grew.
Yeah. If there's a book in there or two that stood out, what would they be?
As a Man Thinketh is probably outside of the Bible, my favorite book.
Yeah.
It's so short and sweet, but it's so sweet. It was written in 1903 by James Allen, if anybody needs to look it up. And what I love about it is that there's no fluff. There's no go to my website. There's no any of that. There was no website. So it was like he was so straight to the point to where you felt nothing but conviction from reading that book. And that's exactly what most of us need. We need to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm not living up to my full capability. I'm not doing enough. I was giving excuses, you know, and that's what I needed for myself. And that book changed my whole mind and in turn helped change my life. Another book, there was a lot. ABCs to Success by Bob Proctor was a great one. It was so simple. He broke everything down, you know, by the alphabet. Each chapter was a different letter. And the breakdown and the encouragement from it and the tips that he gave was amazing. Amazing.
Love it. I'm definitely going to check those two out. But yeah, it's just a testament, right? You think that one thing that maybe, you know, and the excuse could be, this is going to take too much time. And like you said, you literally saw such a high revenue increase by this, you know, thing that could have been looked at as a negative,
right?
And you turned it into a positive.
I mean, that's what it's about. I look, you know, again, I trace so much back to being an athlete. I seek challenge. You know what I mean? I don't mind challenge. If I'm working out, I seek failure so that I know, okay, I did what I was supposed to do. I went all out. And I mean, I know you can attest to that, to where the trainer's like, okay, let's go to failure, or let's go till you can't push this thing up anymore.
Yeah.
And I have the same mindset now to where, okay, let me see how, you know, what I can do to my max. And like I've been blessed to be able to, you know, have a conversation with Kobe Bryant, right? So we spoke for about 30 minutes one day. And he told me something that I would never, ever forget. Like it was the Mamba mentality straight from the Mamba himself. It was a one-on-one conversation. Like my father was there, you know, during the conversation, but he was just talking to me the whole time. And he told me, I got to be willing to see black. He hit me on the chest like, you got to be willing to see black, man. And I didn't get it right away. And he's like, you got to go all out. You got to be willing to tap out. Like, do you go that hard when you work out and it's just you? You know, so it's like,
damn,
that's the mentality that I began to carry. I'm like, I'm willing. I'm literally willing to go down, you know, and at least I'll be proud of myself. You know, as I'm going down, I promise you I'll be smiling. You know, hopefully somebody to pick me back up. Hopefully there's some water right there. You know what I mean? But I've been proud of myself because I know, like, nobody knows but you truly the effort you gave. Like, nobody knows your capacity outside of you. No one truly knows that. People can try to find it out. They can push you that hard, but you know when you gave your all, you didn't give your all. There's been so many. I know with the majority of what I've done, I gave my all, and I have reaped the benefits of that, you know, throughout, you know, over time. And I really just believe if you guys just give your all a little bit more, you know what I mean? The benefits, it'd be a byproduct of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about your book because the whole title is filtering, right? And you have this concept of filtering for growth. What does that mean to you?
So again, filtering in itself, you know, it's just something I made for myself, you know, a method I created for myself going through some trouble that I had about 7 or 8 years ago. And just during that whole process, I even broke down to, you know, just going to these different jobs and just following being a pro athlete and going through, you know, troubled marriage and all this stuff that was happening. It was like, oh my goodness. And being a father at the same time, a single father, and then all of a sudden back together, it was tough. And I had to slow life down because it was going like this. It was a whole whirlwind. And, you know, life was just tanking and I was going with it. Yeah. You know, and I had to just find out a way to gain something from it. I'm like, I'm going through this. I might as well get something good from it. I got to find a way to get something good from it. And the common factor and denominator that I found by looking at all these different situations that I was going through was there was an energy, like literally, you know, whether I was sad, I was angry, I was happy, it all required energy. Like I'm happy, I'm singing, dancing, you know, I'm hopping up and down. That's energy exerted. When I'm angry, I'm yelling, this and that. You know, I'm just upset, I'm resenting. That's a whole lot of energy with that. You know, I'm sad, I'm crying myself to sleep. That's a whole lot of energy I just exerted. So I just, you know, had to learn how to convert, you know, and channel this energy from the anger, the sadness, you know, the happiness. I started literally embracing my anger like I never had before. And that's what helped me out so much, was the fact that things that I was once angry about, I was like, all right, bet, this is perfect. I get even more energy now by using this anger as motivation. Like I've done that before on the basketball court. I've never really done that in life, you know. Like now I'm like, I don't seek to be angry, no, at all. But if it happens to be something, I filter it. I break it down to where I can understand what I'm being angry about, but I still say, okay, use this energy you have that you want to have toward this situation. Nope, don't apply it there. That's the wrong place to apply it. There's gonna be too much emotions involved. Apply it over here to where it can drive you to do something great. And by way of this method called filtering, you know, as you guys, you know, hopefully will read about, to see how I broke things down for myself and channeled, you know, the energies. And that's why I call it, you know, the way to extract strength from the struggle, is because the struggle is the sweet spot. That's where we grow the most after a struggle. You know, it's literally, you can only go up, you know what I mean? And I began seeing that and embracing it. And that was the best part for me. I saw so much growth after these periodic struggles. I was like, this is the best.
Yeah, it's an awesome concept. And the way that you put it is perfect. I've talked about this all the time. Some of the strongest emotions we have are those darker or more negative energies, quote unquote, right? But it's using that, and that filtering method that you explained, it's spot on. Speaking of your book, right now, for anyone listening, I want you to tell them where they can get it, and then where they can follow you on social media and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So again, the book is called Filtering: The Way to Extract Strength from the Struggle. And you can find it now on Amazon, Amazon.com. We're also on BarnesandNoble.com. Again, we just released it 6 days ago, and it's already reviews popping up, which I was like, whoa, okay, I didn't expect this already. I didn't get any advanced reviews. I know how that's a big thing nowadays. I let people buy the book. I put a few posts up, and, you know, a ton of people are buying the book. You know, it's been amazing to see. But yeah, you guys can definitely find it on Amazon. Leave a review. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on there pretty heavy now. And I'm on Facebook as well, Joel Green Official. And I'm one that loves engagement. So if you guys contact me, you will hear right back from me if I can help in any regard. I'm a big time connector too. So if I can even connect someone with someone else, you know, I'll do that and even step out of the picture.
Amazing. You talk about the middleman model, and, you know, you've pushed this business. We talked about the growth that it took, but it's grown rapidly as it started to, you know, catch momentum. So as you're building and scaling this company, what is the middleman model and how did you utilize it?
Well, just as I even said, you know, I love to connect. You know, I don't mind saying, okay, hey, person A, you know, I know person B that can help either you do what you're trying to do, or you can come alongside me and your person B can help us do something great, right?
Right.
So that's pretty much how I began scaling my company, was, you know, bringing people on, you know, and I realized something that was important. I'm like, okay, everyone I know doesn't know who I know. And that was something that I had to really be aware of, that, okay, I may have a great friend over here, but he doesn't know that person that I met over in Germany, who is the COO of that company. Right. And if we work together, they'll help us build up something great. And so that's what I began doing in business. I said, okay, who can I bring on that can help build up this great partnership I have with Nike Sports Camps, right? Being a director of Nike Sports Camps and, over time becoming a national director for them. I said, who can do that? So I dove and found my phone. I said, all right, what great coaches that I have? What great teammates have I had that I can trust, that I know knows the game of basketball, that I know knows sports? And I began calling them. We have so much in our phone, guys, that we use maybe 15, maybe 20% of our phone.
Yeah.
It's like, there's so much within our phone that we never tap into using, right? There's a feature on my phone, I'm Team Droid, by the way, which is a rarity nowadays. I know everybody's Team iPhone, but the thing I love that I use on my phone all the time is I schedule text messages, right? So I treat it like an email. I have messages that's scheduled to go out next week. And that way I can do two things at once, so that when that goes out at 10 a.m. next Monday, I'm already working on something else. So there's so much within our phones that I had to watch tutorials on, okay, what does our phone really offer us? That I don't even know it does. And you would be amazed if you sat down and watched a YouTube tutorial on your phone. You're like, oh shoot, I can do that. It's a computer, as we already know. But that's what I began doing. I began using my phone in different ways outside of just text messages and using apps. And I also found out ways just to leverage my current phone book with people I knew, and just stayed in the middle. I never dropped out to make sure that my business was growing at the same time, but I would put other people on as well, build their network, build everything they could. And we made great things happen and still making things happen.
Yeah, it's all about who you know, right? And being able to utilize that.
Exactly.
You mentioned, the texting, which is such a cool little feature, by the way. Never heard of that, but it's awesome. And James Clear talks about in his book habit stacking, and you mentioned earlier, getting up at 5 a.m. But what are some of the habits that you maybe got during playing or maybe after playing, but that you utilize today that you attribute a lot of your success to?
Well, there was something to where my coach, this was the second national title I told you about. It was annoying at first, but he had this whole one more thing, right? And so he would say, all right, guys, we got 10 reps of this in the weight room. Okay, all right, cool. And he's literally standing to the side while we're helping each other bench and everything. And we bang out our 10. We're literally pushing it back to racket. One more. He just yells it out of nowhere. You wouldn't even be looking half the time. And so, we had to pump out another one. You get one more pump up. We end up doing 17, right? Instead of 10. And because we failed on 17. And that mentality, my son knows that one more mentality. I say, what? He don't like it. He's like, all right, we're going to get 3 of these, 3 reps here. I'm like, all right, one more. And, it's like, can you say 3? I'm like, one more. Because I know that one more is usually the turning point. That's what gets the best out of you, So if I'm reading something that I need to research, and I don't really feel like it. I'm not one that's going to sit here and lie and say I always feel like doing this stuff. I don't always feel like doing this, no. But I do it despite. That's what discipline is all about. And so if I say, okay, let me read about 5 pages of this, 10 pages for research. All right, let me read one more page. And I end up reading 3 more. You know what I mean? And it's that one more mentality that I carry into business today. It just helps propel everything. I always feel like it gets me past my former self. I'm always recreating myself that way. I'm like, all right, this is what I was able to do last year. Do one more thing better than I did last year. You know what I mean? And that's probably the main thing that I carry now. Outside of still waking up early, that habit is a great habit. Because I'm able to maximize on my day. I'm able to have silence, for the first couple hours before I even wake my son up at 7. I already have a couple hours to where I've been able to wake up, pray, just have solitude, think. Because we don't give ourselves, it's a rare occasion we think. You know what I mean? What was the last time most of us just sat there literally and just had, a notebook, a pen or a pencil, and just your phone is off, no TV on, not even, you can have some music on. But when is the last time you just sat there and just thought for 10 minutes, 5 minutes? So that's what I do in the morning. I love just sitting down and thinking, about nothing specific, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah.
And if I allow myself to entertain, some good ideas, even bad ideas, and I write it down. And the last couple minutes of that thinking time, I go and I quickly entertain a few of the ideas that I wrote down.
Yeah.
But,
Love that. Yeah. There's a lot of solitude in that early time. And it's so true. I mean, before the emails start dinging and your phone rings and everything else happens, and you got lunch, dinner, then
Exactly.
you got family, you got girlfriend, you got friends. I mean, it's just the list goes on, right? Then you turn around and it's 9 o'clock and you need to start over.
You've been on everybody else's time, like you said, the emails, man. You can spend hours on emails. It's crazy. It's nuts, man. It's like I try to get my own time before I have to respond to everybody else's request. But that's a blessing, man. That the waking up early. I know it's a highly talked about habit, but it really does pay off, in increments, because you'll see over the period of a month how it paid off. You gained an extra, depending on what time you wake up, you gained an extra 10 hours this past month. Like, that's a lot. You know what I mean? Like, an extra 10 waking hours. Imagine what you can do with that.
A lot. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I want to touch on, you mentioned earlier you have a BA in psychology. The show's all about mindset, and you've talked a lot about mindset today inadvertently, but you talked some about the power of thought and, the correlation of what we think in our mind and how we actually operate. So what are some tools, for training our mind for success and training our mind to not listen to the negative self-talk and kind of reprogram what we were talking about earlier with the subconscious brain, where we're really on autopilot 90% of the day, right? So how do we become more conscious and aware and utilize the power of our mind?
Again, I'll be honest with you, man, that thinking time that I just mentioned, that time of solitude is huge. It really is, because that's where you can incorporate this key component, which is imagination. So for me, I'm big on really visualizing things, seeing things, and even beyond that, feeling things, right? So I have different levels of my faith. Like, it's initially ground level, maybe hope.
Right.
Then it's, I don't know. It'll go from hope up to expectancy, right?
Right.
So that's my last level, is expectancy. As far as my hope goes, like, I expect to have something that I'm going after. I don't just hope for it in the end. Like, I'm going to get it because I put enough time into seeing this thing to where I actually feel it. Right. That's the key thing for me. That's one way we can reprogram ourselves to where the things that you want to actually begin pursuing for yourself, please give yourself some time to really see it first. You know what I mean? Give yourself time to, like, devise a plan mentally for it. Imagine it. Imagination is not corny because we're adults. And that's one thing that I've had to tell organizations, like, hey, look, we have to revert back to childhood and have this childlike imagination again, because that's when we really believed that nothing was impossible. And that's a beautiful thing, for a child. The child, like, children knows, they got the secret sauce, man.
Yeah.
Like, they know that nothing is impossible. Without it, they know it. And that's why they'll go ahead and create a blueprint of how to get to the moon, right? Like, they'll get their Crayola marker, crayons, and it's like, all right, look, I drew up a whole map of how to get there. I'm like, I love that. Yeah. Now, just imagine if we had that same level of belief as adults, but now having the education that we have alongside it, we're not as ignorant as children are. Right. So if we dare entertain our imagination and really say, oh, wow, okay, I can actually do X, Y, Z. I can call that person that actually is an expert in that area. You can put together these plans. Imagination is key for me, man. So that's one area to where I tell adults all the time when I'm going to speak, you have to utilize it and embrace it and not see it as some childlike thing. And I run business ideas past my son, man. He's 9 years old, and I tell you, I've run. He knows about investing. I've run investment ideas because I know, as educated as I am, I'm still an adult, so I know statistics, I know logistics, I know too much stuff to where it limits my thinking. He's still in that place of not knowing a whole lot, statistically. You know, and it's like I run things by him so that he can tell me the raw truth about it. Just tell me like, no, that don't sound like it's gonna work. You know, like, or, you
Yeah.
know, or just whatever. He'll come up with a way for it to work. And I'm like, oh wow, that actually I didn't think about that because I'm thinking about numbers. I'm thinking about what happened in Wisconsin and thinking that that might affect Pennsylvania. He's like, well, he just telling me what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we can do for ourselves, guys. Like we just take that approach by thinking as a kid and seeing what we truly want to the point to where we literally feel it like it's ours. When you pursue something like it's yours already, you go after it all out like you deserve it. And that's how I go after everything. I mean it, basically. Like I go after something like it's already mine, so that even when I don't get it, I'm like, wait a second, I'm offended. You know, and that's what it's happened. Trust me, I've become so offended by not getting something before, to where I'm like, no, you know, it has to happen, and I end up finding a way to get it or get something better or get mighty close to it.
Yeah. That childlike awe. It's at some point, you know, we think that it's, like you said, childlike, or this thing that we have to put to the side and we have to be grown-ups now. And
Right.
oh, man, the power of when you do combine that, it's
Look,
awesome.
I'm a big kid, man. Look, I have no problem admitting that, man. I'm a big kid when it comes to just to thinking, man. When it comes to creativity, I love creating, and you know, kids are the best creators out there. Like they just are, because they do it without limits. So I had to. That's a part of this three-step system I came up with myself. The first step is to have a childlike imagination, and I wholeheartedly embraced it.
What are the other two steps?
But I just wanted to tease you a little bit. But you know, but I mean, so the other two steps are to need your wants, which I love discussing for people, because I mean that's, as I just told you, you know, I pursue things at a different level, man. I go after it as if I truly need it, as if it's vital to my life, man. An example that I give to people a lot from the stage is, you know, I tell them, number one, like wants are optional, needs are vital, they're necessary. You have to have those things, and you pursue a need versus a want so much different. So I'll let them know. I say, all right, let's use our childlike imagination. I already discussed it during that time. I said, well, let's apply it right now. I tell everybody to close their eyes and, you know, to picture themselves in the desert. And I'll tell them just, you know, you've been there all day. I kind of break it down how hot it is. And I say, well, you know, it's excruciatingly hot and, you know, you're dehydrated. I say, well, what's something that you need in that moment? And everyone yells water. I'm like, okay, right, you need water. And I said, if you needed water in that moment, you would be willing to dig into a cactus with your bare hands just to get that water out. And I said, why? Because you need it. Your life depends on it. If you only wanted water in that moment, you would walk right past that cactus and all the cacti in the desert looking for an easier option. Wants are optional. And that's why I just let them know, like, when you need something, you're willing to go all out to get that thing. So you have to reframe and reprogram your thinking in regards to your desires and stop saying that you want stuff. Tell yourself that you need certain things. That subconscious side of you is going to take over from there. It's going to believe it. It's going to run with it. You know, like our subconscious mind doesn't know anything outside of what we tell it. And it follows suit. And that's, for me, it's about that programming. So I tell myself I need a certain thing. I don't have to tell the whole world or tell my friends. They won't believe it.
Right.
If I say I needed that Maserati, they're like, what do you need that for? You know, like, that's not who I am. But if I, you know, people won't understand your needs. So you don't have to broadcast it to everybody, but you have to tell you what you need so that you go after it in that fashion, in that manner. You'll see the fruits of your labor. Absolutely. And I will say this, the third and final step is to focus on the journey. That's the best part, because a lot of people makes the mistake of focusing on the end goal that they set, right? And when they're over here and they focus on all the way over here, they overlook everything that's in the middle to even get to that point. And when they overlook stuff, you depreciate all that stuff. You don't appreciate those things. And when you're not appreciating things, a lot of those things actually leave. Just like a person. If you're in a relationship, you depreciate that person, they're out, they leave. Right. Same works with opportunity. So, you know, I tell people you got to focus on the journey, focus on today. That'll get you to tomorrow. Don't worry about tomorrow. It's going to be a byproduct of your great work today. And, you know, so those are those three steps in a nutshell. But I had to fully buy into those things, man, and just live by it.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's real powerful. There's a question I always like to ask, and it's, what is your definition of success?
I love it, man. Full out fulfillment, man. It's fulfillment for me. I'm successful every day because I'm fulfilled every day. And that's just, I've told many people nowadays that I don't pursue happiness anymore. It's like, I know pursuing happiness is a thing. And I know it's a whole movie, you know,
Yeah.
but it's not about happiness for me. Because happiness tends to be like an end result of things, you know. It's the pot of gold at the end. I want to enjoy the process, man. I want to enjoy what gets me there. And what gets me there is the fulfilling nuggets that I can get along the way. Like, I'm not happy to wake up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. I'm not happy, but it's fulfilling because I know what it's going to do for me. So I do it again. Like, I do it, and I'm gonna do it again and again and again because it's so fulfilling. So when I pursue this fulfillment, I feel successful right away. Right? And I pursue it. I'm successful, and I can go to sleep truly feeling like I didn't miss out on any life. I didn't miss out on any fulfillment because I did what I was supposed to do and I was focused on it. And I really believe it's just a shift in our focus. That's it. It's not like a shift in a whole lot of stuff you have to add into your life. It's about shifting what you view and what you look at. Because again, success is relative, man.
Right.
It's no one definition. There's no one framework. It's truly about how you feel, man. Success is a feeling. It's not a thing. It's not a prize. It's not a tool or a reward that you receive. It's a feeling.
Right.
The fact that I can say I feel fulfilled, I'm successfully living.
100%. One more time for everyone that's been listening. Where can we get your book? Where can we find you on socials? Plug it all. Training.
Sure,
So if we want to hoop with you.
Got you. So yeah, my company is Pro Level Training, and I'm a national director for Nike Sports Camp. So we have our trainings and our camps all around the country. You know, you can look us up. And my book is Filtering. My new book, Filtering: The Way to Extract Strength from the Struggle. You can find it on Amazon. You know, it's a lot of people purchasing right now. I'm getting tagged, you know, in different posts on Instagram and just social media abroad, which is awesome. I love it. I just love the fact that this impact is taking place. That's my objective. I want to have this book really impact the masses. And again, it's on Amazon. You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. Instagram, I'm Jay Green PLT. That's Jay Green PLT. It stands for Pro Level Training. And I'm just joining the TikTok world finally. After people have literally been saying, you have to. I got on there like a week ago. So, but I'm on there, Jay Green PLT. Again, I love to interact with you guys. That's what I'm all about. I really am about change and impact as much as possible, just to help people level up.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much for joining the show, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm excited to see what you continue to do. Pumped to check out the book. I definitely will. Everybody do the same. And let us know what you thought about the show today. Follow Joel. Let us know what you thought. Give us a review. And yeah, go check out the book. I'm pumped to read it, man.
Awesome. Mason, I really appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for having me on here.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you for tuning in to another week. You know the drill. If you get something from this podcast today, share it with someone and then put it to action. Those are your 2 tickets to admission. So thank you all so much for joining and have a great rest of the week.